What's up, guys? We'll be looking at the ESFP personality type today using Ewan McGregor, a very famous Scottish actor, as an example. He starred in some of my favorite movies like Star Wars and Trainspotting, so hope you enjoy. Extroverted sensing, or SE in the first, the dominant function. Very strong willpower, the will to act, to do, finesse, kinesthetic intelligence, trusting impulses, and in this interview it'll come out through his hand movements, very fluid, very natural. Introverted feeling in the second, strong emotional connection to the self, experiencing deep emotions, understanding and digesting them, right-brained intelligence, being authentic, being genuine. When SE and FI work together like this, I like to think of people like, someone really funny like Chris Farley, or someone really ambitious, really attractive like Marilyn Monroe. 6-slot FE. It does come out at times in this interview, wide facial expressions, considering others, putting attention towards others, like his audience, mimicry, and, harmony, harmonizing with the audience. 3rd slot, extroverted thinking, deductive reasoning, systematic logic, facts, sources, checkpoints. 4th thought, NI, introverted intuition. It's the ability to focus on one idea, one concept at a time. And in this interview, he uses it to recall information, recall a concept, and then pick out stuff from it with extroverted sensing, pick out the details. And those are the functions to look out for, and hope you enjoy.
Please join me in welcoming Ewan McGregor.
Hello. Very kind, thank you.
Well, now I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank
What
you.
about the people behind this cameraman? That sucks, doesn't
Are
it?
you doing okay? Yeah.
It's like one of those cheap seats in the theatre where you have the pillar. That's annoying.
So how he just scanned the audience like that with his eyes, that's what I think DJR&D called the SE scan. And SE DOMs do this a lot, especially when they're entering a new area. They'll quickly scan the objects and the people around them, and they'll absorb tons of tangible information about their immediate surrounding.
Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Since this is a SAG audience, I generally like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG
Have
card?
I paid my dues? I hope so. I think I'm up to date. I hope so.
Literally and figuratively, have you paid your dues?
Yeah, no, I do. I've always thought it was very important. In Britain, we have equity, and I've always thought that was important. And I came out, I left drama school at a time when it became sort of slightly less important. Getting an equity card in Britain was a big deal when in the time when there was more regional theatre and things. And but I still thought it was always very important. And getting a SAG card is the equivalent here for me, anyway. I don't know if you agree, but
You can see very animated, fluid SE hand movements that he uses to emphasize his points, and the way he's checking in on the crowd, trying to connect with the group energy as a whole, trying to harmonize with it. 6-slot FE.
I got my SAG card, I think, by probably would have been the first film that I shot here, right? And it was a film called Night Watch, a long time ago. It was the first film I ever shot in the States, and the first film I shot in LA, I think.
Oh, wow. That was pretty well into your career in film.
I can't remember.
But
Yeah. I really don't. I mean, I do remember. It was.
That's an example of an NI insight. And as far as SE DOMs, they have very strong short-term memory, not like SI DOM long-term memory. And because ESFPs value NI over SI, NI will try and recall a concept or a general idea from the past, and then when it's been recalled, they can pick out details from it with dominant SE.
I can remember everything by how old my kids were at that given time, and I had to leave London to rehearse for 3 weeks when my baby was 3 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. So it was 16 years ago.
I want to start at the beginning with your career. You were born and raised in Scotland. That's not just affectation you're hearing.
I'm working on a Scottish accent for a piece. Yeah. I'm really American.
So that's a bit of FI, showing that once he received the compliment, the genuine laugh, showing the ability to pull out characters from within, different accents. But what I've noticed, and I think I touched on this in my ISFP video with Kendrick, is that people with strong FI, because FI is so introspective and it wants to contemplate about an emotion that's experienced from within, from the self. Once it's fully digested and understood, it can actually be used as a sort of emotional memory bank, and it helps someone recall an experience just based on how they were feeling at that time. You'll see an example of this later, but let's skip ahead a bit.
Then you have to find out what that means to be an actor. And it was I was 9 when I said to him, Uncle Dennis, I want to be an actor. And he said, well, come back to me in 10 years if you still feel that way, But he was very instrumental in starting me on my path, if you like. Anyway, I'm not letting you ask any questions, sorry.
They're not here to hear me, it's fine. You don't have to agree so loudly.
That was really loud there, whoever said that.
No. I had heard, though, that so many people are discouraged from going into acting by family and friends who are being very practical. But is it true your parents actually encouraged it?
Yes, yeah. And my mum was driving me into Crieff one night. I was just 16, and it was pouring with rain, as it often is in Scotland. And I remember the windscreen wipers splashing the water off the windscreen as we drove along. And she said, as we drove along, I could feel that she was quite tense. I didn't know why. And she said, listen, I've spoken to your father, and if you want to leave school, you can. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And that was it. I left that moment in my head. And it was just absolute courage on their part, because they always knew what I wanted to be. They knew I wanted to be an actor. And they knew that I wasn't happy at school. And in actual fact, it wasn't going to benefit me to stay, because I was so hell-bent on doing what I do that...
Hellbent. It's an interesting word that I feel correlates to SE in the first. It kind of reflects the attitude of strong willpower, ability to break through boundaries. But Hellbent itself makes me think of Ozzy Osbourne, who I view as another example of an ESFP, especially Black Sabbath and songs like Paranoid or Crazy Train. His ability to just get on stage and perform in the moment, first slot SE, the way he knows himself, sings in his own unique way from the heart, second slot FI.
I did a speech from a play called Road by Jim Cartwright, and there's a brilliant speech. It's a really angry play. It's a good play, and there's a speech in it that starts, I feel like England's forcing the brain out of my head, and it's a sort of angry skinhead character, and so we started working on that, and I've played him as a Scotsman. And because he's not written as a Scotsman, but it added a certain sort of political edge to the piece, I feel like England's forcing the brain out of my head, and...
So this is another example of strong FI, and that when it's tasked with playing a character in a play or a movie, to really understand it, to own it, and to look from within, pulling out emotions and characters from within and making a connection with it, and adding personal touches to it to make it more genuine.
It was an interesting piece, and I'd had no connection to what I was doing. I was saying words, I'd learnt words and I was saying them. I had no connection to them. I didn't understand that yet. I was 16 and my concept of acting was shallow, And but I'd been beaten up in Glasgow a couple of weeks before he arrived. By a drunk, I was beaten up by a guy on a train. I was there with some friends. We'd gone to a house party in Glasgow. It was a big deal to go to Glasgow for us. We were real chuchters, we're called. We're from the Highlands, little small town people. And we went to the big city, and I was only 16. It was a big deal. And we got on a tube train in Glasgow, and to go to this party. And a guy got on and was drunk and walked into a pillar. And I made a joke. I said, "Watch the pillar."
ESFPs, they'll sometimes make jokes like that, and even though they're really funny, it's a bit quick and impulsive, and it can actually get them into trouble sometimes just based on what they say. But anyways, in this final clip, you'll see how it all comes together and how it shows introverted feeling.
And that apparently was maybe the worst thing that I could have ever said to anybody, because he decided that when I got off, he was going to kick the shit out of me, and that's exactly what he did.
Not even for the sake of a good joke.
No, he didn't like it very much. So anyway, when I started this speech, my uncle, he said, okay, we borrowed the gym in the school where I went, where my dad taught. And there was nobody there. It was a Saturday or something. It was empty. But he said, look, I want you to think about when you were beaten up in Glasgow. I went, okay. No, he said, really think about it, what it felt like, how humiliated you were when he was kicking you and punching you. And I started thinking about it, and I started feeling that humiliation and that sort of pain and upset. And he said, okay, now swear. I went, what? He went, just fucking swear. Think about what he did to you, that guy. And I went, fuck. And he went, that's it, go on. And it just made me swear. And I found myself using hard words and feeling this hard emotion. And somehow there was a connection to that was incredibly powerful. I'd never felt that before. And he went, okay, now let's do the piece. And I started the piece, and I suddenly felt this. I was saying words and feeling these massive feelings, and they were connected to the text. And it was just an incredible moment for me. It was a realization of the power of what acting is, you know.
All right, guys, that'll be it for now. I hope this analysis helped you better understand the ESFP and the cognitive functions. Feel free to like and subscribe. It would really help me out. And as always, thanks for watching.